Hey everyone, I'm Brian Austin Green.
I'm Shauna Burgess.
And I'm Randy Spelling.
And you are listening to Oldish, an iHeartRadio podcast.
And we're back.
Hi everybody.
Hey.
I got it. I got in first. See, now it's a race.
Randy got in first.
No, he said, and we're back.
Yeah,
No.
that was my intro.
That's
we're
his
back.
intro.
I say, just from the narcissistic side of myself, we cut that and we started it. Hello, everybody. That should be the beginning.
I love all of this. Let's leave all of this.
We're going to have editing wars on this. Brian, I saw a picture earlier of you shoveling, and I just have to say,
Of me shoveling?
Yeah, you were shoveling
outside.
Oh,
Yeah,
I was like a picture.
It was a video actually.
I knew it.
shared
I knew she was fucking going to. I swear to God, like whenever I'm doing anything, she takes pictures, like these weird little, like creepy sort of stalkerish
Just
pictures, and then she
zooming from a
posts
distance.
them. She does weird things like that.
She does. The greatest part is she's talking about how she's having you're both having a relaxing morning, and she's
She's
doing
in,
something,
like-
and then she takes a shot out the window, and you are sitting there going to town, shoveling like you were sandbagging for a storm coming.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
so don't think for a second that the red check mark is not going on the calendar for the work that I put in this morning.
Yeah, he did a
Oh,
big
yeah.
That was my workout.
Yeah.
That was my full body.
It
Absolutely.
was, I was like, I'm just having a leisurely morning, and by,
Jesus Christ.
looking out the window, just see him sweating buckets. Even the guy with the excavator or whatever that comes out and clears the snow was like, let me help you out with that.
Yeah.
He came over
Yeah.
and cleared the
Help clear the
driveway.
driveway a little bit, because the snowplow goes, and then the snow that ends up on either side of the street are just like big chunks of ice. And so you can't use a normal shovel to get through it. It's not like the powder that's everywhere else that I could easily clear. So
Anyway,
yeah, thanks, baby.
I love those things. I find it so attractive. I'm like, that's my sexy man out there just shoveling away.
She sneaks stuff. If I'm like building things or whatever, she's like, behind a bush, like doing these like weird little things.
But it
Kind of a
works
little
for
bit.
her.
I'm a bit of a creep. I think I'm a bit of a creep. I like perving on my men. So what?
So what?
Well, this is
So-
what's going to keep the spice alive
It
in
is.
your marriage.
Totally.
Which is, oh my gosh, I just said marriage.
Oh yeah, I say
did.
honestly, sometimes I say my husband just because it's I don't know. Just
Right.
because I can and I want to, and I love that.
So today our guest is incredible. For people that have
Yes.
sent in questions that we asked for, thank you so much. Her name is Jaiya.
Miss Jaiya, yeah.
Miss Jaiya is what she
Let's
goes
talk
by. You
about
can
sex,
you can-
baby.
Baby,
yeah.
let's
you
talk
can
about
look her up on
it.
Instagram under Miss Jaiya. She is a sex therapist, and she's the one that literally everybody goes to if they're having any sort of questions or any sort of issues or anything in their life.
I actually know this is as far as this information will go. I actually know someone that went to her a few years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, I so badly want to hear those stories
I
because
know,
it's-
I know. I cannot. It's so personal, and
of
obviously
course,
that
of
should be
course.
kept anonymous.
Of course.
But when we talked about having this Jaiya on, I was like, I know that name, and it came back to me, and it's really wild and amazing and groundbreaking, and just outside the box, at least for me, of what she does. So
let me
cannot wait to speak
read
to her.
into this a little bit, because her bio is a bit long. I mean, she's done a lot of stuff, but I'm so curious to get into just how this even started and how it came to be and what research has gone into a title like this. So she's an award-winning somatic sexologist, a sexological body worker, author and founder of the Erotic Blueprint Breakthrough, with over 3 decades of practice in the study of turn-on, ancient erotic rituals, tantric sex, mastery of the sexual touch, pure exotic play, kinky dynamics, and the biology and psychology of attraction and sexual fulfillment.
Honestly, I think I'm blushing just listening. to her.
Just that alone, it's like, oh my, how?
Right.
I'm dying to know how
How a sex therapist works.
that works.
So one of the questions that came through wasn't a question. It was a woman admitting and laughing at herself, saying, I honestly thought up until a few years ago that a sex therapist was someone that watched you have sex and then helped you.
and
do
then
things.
scored you, right?
Like
held
no,
up like an 8 out of 10. Like,
I don't know if that is like in part what can happen with a sex therapist.
There's many kinds of sex therapists. I mean, there can be talk therapy to somatic to working through trauma through
Yeah, she's
to-
all of it.
all sorts of things that
Randy, I
Jaiya's
think
going to
you're
talk to
even
us
blushing.
about.
I think
I'm
you're
totally,
blushing, Viola.
I'm totally
was on-
blushing because I know what's about to happen, but I also, just for everyone
Wait, you know what's
listening.
about to happen for who, Randy?
Oh,
What do you?
Probably us.
You're going to throw me
It's
under
gonna
the
be
bus,
us.
aren't you?
Yeah.
This is gonna you're just going to point
Oh
the
man.
the sex
I mean,
tool
you
at
know
us
I'm
and-
intuitive, right? So I'm
Ugh.
looking at the whole thing, and I know what's about to go down. But I was so excited for today because I think this is one of the most taboo, scariest, awkward things to talk about.
Yet it should be the number one thing talked
Right.
about. It's so important
Right.
in a
Yes.
healthy relationship.
Because there's creativity through sex. There's connection. It's not just only about the physical act. It's learning about yourself.
So she was on a Netflix documentary series called Sex, Love, and Goop with Gwyneth Paltrow.
That's where I first saw her.
Yeah, and they help couples enhance their relationship through more pleasurable sex and deeper intimacy.
So she talks about this erotic blueprint. We're going to talk about it with her, but
Did
I
you
know
do the test?
we did the test.
Yeah.
I know, Randy, you did because you'd said you did. What did you get? I
No,
want to know.
no. We're
I
not going to
wanna-
give that away. I say we talk about that once she's on, and we get into it so we can ask her a question about it.
I actually want to know if she can pick up. I don't want to put her on the spot. I want to know if she can pick up on our blueprint. If she just knows people so well that by talking to them or asking them a couple questions, if she can tell.
Should we
Maybe
bring
there's
her
just
in?
an energy about someone
Should
where
we
you
do
can
this?
tell.
All right, well, let's do it.
let's
Are
do
we
this.
ready?
Let's bring
Are
her
we
in.
ready
I'm
for this?
excited.
Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Miss Jaiya. Oh, there she is.
There
Hi,
she is.
Miss
Oh, boy,
Jaiya.
the anticipation right now is killing us. She's in.
Hi, Jaiya.
How
Are you used to every time you get on one of these that everyone's already
Everyone's like,
blushing?
oh my God, they're like sweating. Like I'm like in a flop sweat right now.
I love
Hi,
it.
thank you so much for
Yeah.
being here.
It's my great pleasure for being here. It's already an orgasmic start.
Oh, well,
That is definitely
that's
one. Yeah, I mean,
one way to describe it.
Yeah, it
Sure.
is for sure.
Okay, so how did you start in this? What was the thing that pushed you in this direction to begin with?
Well, I saw Dr. Ruth on something when I was really young. I mean, she probably was 60 then. She's like 90 now and still kicking it. So, orgasms must have something to do with longevity and energy levels.
Love
But
Is she still alive, by the way? She
still
is, right?
alive. Yeah,
She is?
Good for
yeah.
her.
It's
That's amazing.
Good
Good.
for her.
like 90 now. Yeah,
She's
so
still doing her thing.
And probably still having orgasms
He's
at 90.
probably talking
Absolutely.
to Jaiya now all the time, like, hey, so what can I do at 90 to get through? So Jaiya is the new Dr. Ruth. Okay, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
So I saw her somewhere, and at the time I was like, I grew up very Catholic, and it was not PC to tell your parents that you want to be a sex educator when you grow up or a sex therapist when you grow up. And so I told them that I wanted to go into fertility medicine. And then I just researched everything that I could around sexuality, even from a very young age. I was at the library sneaking into the sections that I shouldn't have been in as a teenager.
You're kidding. Just out of fascination, out of like you felt drawn to it. How did that
I felt like it was part of my purpose in the world was to teach all my friends and tell everyone
Wow.
about the truth around sexuality. I was really like a truth seeker, very young, of like, they've been lying to us about the stork.
Huh. Yeah, they have.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
totally.
about this thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so wait, I'm sure the truth of sexuality has changed for you over the years as you've grown and evolved. So right now, this may change, but right now, what is the truth about sexuality that we need to know?
I think the truth about sexuality that we need to know right now is that it's much more than we've ever imagined that it could be. To me, at this point in my life, I've come to the understanding that sex is actually a tool for our own personal growth and awakening. And we've been using that tool all wrong. And how are we in right relationship with sex, just like right relationship with each other, that sex is then something that brings us closer to our truer selves.
Hmm.
Oh, can you unpack
Yeah.
that a little bit? Say
Yeah.
more. Say
Right.
more.
Can you dive into? Yeah, say more, please.
So for me, just like any adventure in life, it's about coming to this truth about ourselves and who we fundamentally are. And on that journey, there are many, many tools that we have to bring us back to the truth about ourselves. And over our lifetime, we get conditioned and programmed and told how we're supposed to be based upon gender, based upon race, based upon socioeconomic status, based upon being in the spotlight or not, just all of these different facets of life of how and who we're supposed to be. And sex is one of those things that can help us unravel that into a more deeper sense of self and into a deeper sense of how we connect on this planet through the intimacy with both ourselves and with each other.
Interesting. Yeah. See, I always felt when I was younger that the supposed act of sex was supposed to be for procreation. But then there was the side where it was like, oh, the pornography exists. So it was kind of like my dirty little secret of like the enjoying of sex aside from just making children. And now it's like this revolution has come, and because of like the work that you're doing, people are realizing that there's so much more to it, and you can create such a needed connection between people. But it's hard. It still takes time for me, because there is still part of my mind that says, oh no, sex is just for this. And it's like, okay, I have fun with it, but don't have too much fun, because then something's wrong with you. If it's
Right.
like, if there's a sport aspect to it. Sex talk is a tricky talk.
Yeah, I think it is. And it's something that, because we don't talk about it, that's why it's so tricky. Because we
Right.
don't have these adult conversations
Right.
around sexuality. So thank you all for having an adult conversation with me today.
Yeah.
And we also don't have community around sexuality, because we're not having the conversation. It's not like we can see what other people are doing, like in other instances of life. This is something that's been so hidden and so taboo. And then we have so much confusion layered on top of it that it has to come out sideways. I mean, I think this is why we get the shadow side of sexuality, is because we have so much suppression of sexuality. I ask audiences all over the world, what did you learn about sex? Who had a great sex education?
Right.
And, two people will raise their hand, and I'll say, well, actually, all of you got a sex education. You just didn't get a good one. We all are getting messages every day about who we are as sexual beings. And when you go on that journey of sexual liberation or sexual awakening, as I mentioned, that piece of that brings us closer to who we really fundamentally are is so profound. But that only happens when we have that consciousness and that intention that our sexuality is not just for procreation, but also for our growth, also for intimacy, also for pleasure. I mean, pleasure is such a bad word. My goodness. Like
Right.
we're not allowed to have pleasure. Work, 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 work,
Right.
work.
Right.
Right.
That's no play.
Yeah, I feel like I would be so judged if I came out and talked about everything.
About just sex openly all the time.
Just open, yeah.
Yeah.
Just about who I was and how I felt about it. So we all did the blueprint test,
Yay.
each of us. Yeah, but it was a lot. It's a lot to unpack. Randy's the one I've honestly been the most curious about.
We
Really?
haven't
Wait,
told each other what we got yet.
Yeah.
We know what
we
each other
we
got,
haven't
but-
shared it. We figured we would share it with you, because then it was a safer space.
That's so fun.
Well, you can just help us understand what it means, because I was almost convinced. No, I think it got me wrong.
Yeah.
So
I had a very clear idea in my head of like, oh, I guarantee I'm going to be this. And then when the results came in, I was like, boy, I didn't see that coming at all. Yet it made total sense listening to the audio thing.
Well, now I'm so excited to know what you all are.
Well, I just was curious, Jaiya. I mean, we've spent 4 minutes together, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you ever have an idea of just sitting with someone or talking with someone and feeling their energy and knowing, okay, they might be one or two of these blueprints?
Yeah, I usually can tell in about 5 minutes. So maybe give me another minute now.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that might be a fun game. Like, let's drag this out a little bit more, and then the pressure is on you, Jaiya.
I mean, just even that you asked me the question, you use the word energy in it, starts to like kind of tip that you were like, just
okay.
feeling somebody's energy
Yeah.
might be, and
See?
then you talking about the shame or the judgment that I might have from my sexual activities, that's starting to clue me into things, and then the way that you're touching your right now, the way you're touching your arm, and so those are all like little clues to start to clue me into
This is so fascinating.
how someone's
I love that.
might be.
Okay, Randy, what were you?
I was sensual.
Of course you were.
Sensual.
Sensual, and then
I
I'm
could have called
curious
that.
if you have a lot of energetic in there too. Did you just do the part of the quiz that gives you one of them?
Yeah, it shows kind of the pie
Oh, I
breakdown
did.
of what it is you
It was
have.
late at night a few nights ago. So yeah, I didn't get the second part. I have to
Yeah, I
go back
wonder
and
if you're
look.
a sensual energetic. That would be my read on you, is that you have a lot of energetic in there, which the energetic loves anticipation, space, tease, longing, and they're interested in what's more about sex than just the like surface physical aspect of sex, but getting into the spirituality of it
Oh my
or
God, I
She
love hearing
pegged
this right now,
me.
and
She
I
got
love
it.
seeing Randy's
She
face.
got it.
This is the greatest. This is
and
so
then
much
combined
fun.
with your sensuality, it's that you also love like the romantic aspect or the context or connection. Like you need to have that sense of connection within
Totally.
eroticism. You couldn't just, go energetic orgasm with just anybody. You need to have that level of intimacy with someone.
This is Randy's like, that's me.
Right.
I love
Mic
it.
drop.
Pay the woman. She
Okay,
got it.
you guys. So wait, before you tell your blueprint, it sounded like both of you were a little bit shocked of your own blueprint, but then when you shared it, did you know about the other, or was that kind of shocking too?
So I think the thing that was shocking for me, much like when I did 23andMe before, like it's because it gives you a
The
pie, basically, like a diagram of what percentage you are of each thing. And I
Mhm.
am pretty equal
Gosh, so
across
I
the
was going to say
board.
you're a sexual shapeshifter would be my read on you.
That's
So shapeshifter is exactly what I got. Yeah. Shapeshifter. And at first I was like, but as I was doing the quiz, I swear, and I said this to Sharna as I was taking it, I was like, I answered both on majority of the questions that came up. Like it gave you the option of, are you this or are you this or are you
Do you like
both?
this? Do you like
And
that?
and mine was both for most of them. There were a couple where it was like, no, that's a little too far. But for me, honestly, it just varies from day to day. At least in reading that, I felt like, okay, that's all right.
What I love about what you just said is how it gave you permission to be you. And I think
It
that that's the
totally
really
did.
Mhm.
important thing about any personality system or the erotic typing systems
Yeah.
are that all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, it's okay that I don't know necessarily what it is that I want, or that it keeps shifting, or that I love surprise and variety, and that I
Yeah.
have a big appetite and I want to try all the things at the
Yeah.
smorgasbord, that's just how I am and that's how I'm wired. Or for you, Randy, where it's like, oh, well, maybe I don't go for that sexual thing. And that's okay. Because how I'm wired is I need time and space and to yearn and long and have those romantic contexts or connection more so than jumping into something. And so just knowing, like, although the two of you are very different, that there's no right or wrong. Like
Right.
Mhm.
Mm,
you are who you are. And I think that that's the beautiful uncovering is like, here's who I am as an erotic being. And I can now own that and do that shame free.
Yeah.
right.
I remember like going through uh just kind of having different days and going, God, I for the most part overall feel like very sensual. Like I am all about the textiles and the sheets and things like that, and
Feeling
connecting.
things.
But then at the same time, it's like I can easily bounce from kinky to it's I'm kind of all over the board.
But yeah.
And yeah, my pie chart
Kind of said
really
that.
reflected that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm curious about your drive because I would have guessed you as a sexual shapeshifter, but I'm kind of hearing you also love the sensuality and that you're leading with sensuality. But do you have like a high drive, a lot of like
I
sexual
do.
charisma?
I do. I
That's
have a
where I would
very high
say you
sex
have that
drive. Yeah.
sexual in there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it varies. So it's like you never know. Uh During the day, it's like I might start becoming aroused or turned on by something where it's like it's not something sexual that I'm like even involved in right now. I don't understand what's going on.
Right.
It's like my brain just automatically will go to
Do you
that
want to
place.
know what's going on?
Yes,
Oh,
I
of
want to know what's going on.
course.
Tell
Yeah,
me.
well,
Yeah.
when you're
Please.
peeling the orange and all of a sudden you're like,
Right.
what is
Right.
happening right
This
now?
this apple's delicious, and I swear I need some time for myself right now.
There's actually a part of your brain called the dual control model response. And what it's doing, this part of your brain is it's scanning all the time, 24/7 for what is sexually relevant and what is not sexually relevant. And that
Mm.
is different in everybody's brains based on history, based upon a lot of different things. And so your brain can scan and might have, they also call it the accelerator brakes model, which was popularized by Emily Nagoski, who wrote Come As You Are.
Okay.
And most people have like the brake going, like don't have sex. You're eating an orange. It's, not,
Right.
not
Yeah.
a sexual thing.
Not me. I'm like, oh, this orange is fantastic. I wonder what else could happen.
Right.
Right. I wonder what this orange could lead to.
So what you're saying is I should have more oranges in the house,
You
right?
should.
So we'll be
or
having
less
oranges.
fruit, really depending on what it is you're looking
Hey,
for.
I mean, fruit is very erotic. It is the sexual organ of the plant. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
it's a very
I did
erotic
not
thing.
realize that. That's amazing.
So a lot of people have the brakes on when
Yeah.
they're eating or doing things, and most of us have too much brakes and not enough accelerator. But some people, when we get sexual compulsion, it's when we have no brake and all accelerator.
Mm.
So it explains, I like to really unravel the sex addiction thing. I don't really think that there's sex addiction. There's just people who have lots of accelerator and no brake, and people who have all brake and not a lot of accelerator. And that's where we get people who like have no libido or not interested in sex.
Do you think that's like physiological, or do you think that that is learned behavior from when you were a kid and some sort of trauma led to that?
I think it's a combination of both things. It can be sometimes physiological and sometimes it's psychological. And sometimes it's even on an energetic level. If we're looking at like people who are very energetics, there could be something even in the transpersonal realms that we can't explain that might be going on. I really believe in the things sometimes that are unseen that we can't explain all the time, that are also, we have to take into account.
Right.
Mm.
All right, baby, you're up.
Yep. I was just going to
Last, yeah. We saved the best for last.
What do you think I am?
Well, I think you're sensual based upon the way that you're touching your body and the way that you are. But there could be some hidden aspects to your sexuality that you haven't explored, that are there, that are actually desires that you just haven't leaned into yet. So that would be my lean. Like maybe you thought you were sensual and then took the quiz and it was something else, or something like that is going on.
Something else like what?
Like, yeah. Okay, so here's me. I for sure thought that I would be sensual, right? Because I'm a my love language is touch.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
everything is
Yeah.
touch. But I came back with, and we had our first two switched, which were kind of the same in percentage, but just
You are
opposite.
dead heat though, like dead even between two.
So I am 25. I am kinky. I came up as kinky.
25%, but then 25% sensual at the same time. So
Sensual
she
at the
is
same time.
absolute both.
So
But I came-
sensual kinky.
Sensual, kinky, and I have like 16% shapeshifter, 16% sexual, and 16% energetic. So the remaining three
Very
are all
close.
pretty even.
Yeah.
But the two chunks are sensual, kinky. And when I was reading through like the kinky doc that came through, and you had some examples, I was like clutching my pearls. Like I don't know if I don't.
I
know
love
if
my
that's
life.
me.
This is amazing. Home life is incredible.
Jaiya, can you explain more about kinky? Because one of the things that I was blown away by when I saw the Netflix documentary that you were in was explaining more about kinky. And I think the way that I typically thought about kink is potentially different than what it actually is or can be. So can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so the kinky blueprint is someone who is turned on by the taboo. And this can be anything that's taboo for you. So, if you're somebody who grew up with a lot of shame or religious upbringing, that where sex wasn't okay, there are a lot of things that can become taboo and things to explore that are in that juicy edge. And so this could be psychological, meaning you want to play a power dynamic, like I'm going to give my power over to you and let you be the person who's in the lead around our sexuality, or I'm going to be the one who has power over. Or this could be more of something that's sensation based, like I like deep impact, something where it's like spanking, or a sensation that's like a scratch, something that's more intense impact play. And so it could be both. So some people are both. My own partner, he is both. He's kinky and he loves both the sensation because he's also sensual kinky. So I totally your blueprint having a partner. And so it was interesting because he led with his sensuality because it was really safe. But his really deep turn on was in the kinky. And the more he developed that kinky and allowed, the shame is the deep, deep part of the kinky that is holding them back. It's the breaks. The breaks are, I don't want to own that I like these things. It's hidden. I've never actually tried these things. They feel edgy. Why am I like this? Why do I like this? All of that come up and prevent the kinky from fully stepping into the glory of their eroticism, which is endless creativity and play and so many really intense and exciting edges that can be explored that really are never ending. Because I think sexuality is one of those places where we can explore for the rest of our lives.
Right.
So, but Jaiya, what do you say to someone? Because I'm sure this happens all the time. You get people who come to you that say, I want to please, or I want to do a good job, or, I want to be carefree in this, but I feel some sort of performance anxiety, or that I'm not up to par. What do you say to that?
For performance anxiety, I think we look at 4 things all the time. And I think these 4 realms or these 4 domains are really important. There's the psyche emotional aspect of what's behind feeling that performance anxiety? Is it a lack of skill set? Is it an emotional thing from your history, trauma, something where you just feel insecure? Is it intimidation from your partner? Is it a safe partner? And so that's all in the emotional realm. So how do you create safety with your partner, for yourself? Looking at maybe history and where that has come up, or you've had maybe moments in the past where I'm putting in quotes, failed in the bedroom in some way, or is it related to something more neurochemical and your testosterone's low? We're looking at the emotional realm, we're looking at the biochemical realm, we're looking at the physical realm, and that's more like the skill sets. What are the physical skill sets? Do you know the anatomy and physiology of your partner? Can you just go learn those skills, and that's going to help you improve in terms of feeling that anxiety. And then the last piece, which I mentioned before, is the energetic aspects of things, and then that more transpersonal spiritual realm and having connection there as well. So I'm always looking at from those 4 facets when there's any challenge coming up. And especially I think performance anxiety, how do you create that space of safety with your partner where you're not feeling judged? You mentioned, Brian, feeling judged for the things.
Yeah. Performance anxiety, it just seems like something that you could easily get into because it's so emotionally driven, and it has so much to do with the partner that you're with and how your connection is in general. And it's so easy, I think, for people to take certain situations and take them personally and think oh, something's wrong with me. So then, oh my God, I got to fix this. And then all of a sudden it's like the snowball effect. It just you get more and more in your head to the point where you're not physically in anything anymore because you're just completely in your head of am I doing the things correctly right now?
Right. The pleasure is completely gone, and it's all about performance.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'd say that this is also a very sensual shadow. So all of the blueprints have a shadow as well. And one of the sensual shadows is you get caught in your head and then you can't feel the pleasure that's happening in your body because you're up here thinking about all the things, the to-do list, things you're not doing right, the pillow that's crooked in the middle of the bed.
I've had that. Wait, I've absolutely had that. I'm not saying currently, but in my life, I've been why the am I thinking about my grocery list right now? I don't understand. And it wasn't with someone that I wasn't into. It was just that my brain would not allow me to feel. And then there was this numbness that would come with it. And then good luck. That nothing's gonna happen from there.
For you, being that kinky's your second, if that ever happens again, go to intense sensation. So a blindfold on can help the mind quiet. Some kind of really intense impact, a scratch, a slap, something that gets you into your body and can take your mind out of that rumination. It'll break the pattern up, especially since you're kinky right underneath your section.
Crazy.
It's I'm fully blushing. I just had this vision of myself turning around and saying to Brian, I just need you to slap me. I feel it's something from a rom-com,
Just say something terrible to me right now. Come on.
Hit me
You'll never
harder.
amount to anything. I don't know what you're looking for.
Is that all you have?
What's going to turn you on in this moment?
So wild. That's so wild, but I get it. I get it.
And it's so good that you're a shapeshifter and you have your percentages so close, so the two of you are like a really, really good match in terms of that.
Yeah,
Because
our pie diagram is very, very similar. Like it's just off by a couple percentage points in each thing. It's not like one person has like, a couple slim lines and then the rest is all full with one thing. Like we're both pretty broadly spaced within, what is it, five
The
things?
5 different ones. Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting, and I think it opens us up for continuing to kind of learn and grow together.
Well, what I loved about it is we have an amazing sex life, but just doing the questions, I was like, huh, like I've never thought about things being like that or doing it that way. I've never wanted for anything in our sex life, been completely happy, but wait a second, that could also be super fun.
Right. Well, again, it's that thing too of answering questions, I think, about yourself. Like sometimes you get so caught up in the other person and what pleases them and what turns them on that you're not really taking care of yourself. So then when you're answering these questions and they're hard questions and it's kind of like really throwing in your face of, hey, what are the things between these two that turn you on? What are the things that turn you on? It really paints this picture in your mind of like, God, I need to be more aware of those pleasures being met for myself, because then I will be a better sexual partner on the reverse side.
Yeah, when you're fed, then you have more to give. And I think a lot of us are starving in our sexuality because, one, we don't even know who we are. So how do we communicate what it is that we want and desire, or what's even possible? I mean, so many of us just touch the tip of the iceberg of what's possible when it comes to our own eroticism. And I think that also there's a mythology that we have to have a partner in order to be erotic beings.
Right.
And no, you're an erotic being, period. And there's not a partner required. It's just amazing when we have a partner that we can then explore with, and we can explore in different ways. So there's a self-exploration and a self-feeding. And then now we spill over into our partner and we feed each other.
Ooh, that's amazing. I would never have thought of like a sexual awakening, I think you called it, when you're single. Like, right? I guess you would think, oh my God, do I have to sleep with like 10 guys in the next 10 weeks to figure out all the things? Like, what is your, like, how do you have that on your own?
I mean, part of it is a pleasure practice. And I talked about, pleasure has become kind of this dirty word. I mean, we've been censored, shut down just for me using the word pleasure. And it's still like, I can't believe it still in today's age that this is still something that's so taboo to talk about. But how are you pleasuring yourself? And I don't just mean in the sexual blueprint, because I think we think of self-pleasure or pleasure as being masturbation.
Right.
And for each blueprint, that's going to look different. And so once you know your blueprint, you can start to really feed yourself in that blueprint. If you're a sensual, maybe you put on your favorite music and roll around in a fur rug naked, like that is just as fulfilling.
Sounds good to me. I'll take some of that.
That's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, just mix that in with some other things and we're right there. That's a date night for me. That sounds amazing. I'll take that.
Get some oranges and Brian sold.
How did you how do you research this? Like, is this like an eyes wide shut thing? Are you like, there's like a stage in front of you and you're like sitting in the back of a theater watching people, or are you like reading books? Are you how does one become as knowledgeable in this field as you have?
Well, first thing, I believe that mastery means that you never stop learning. So I'm always learning, and I'm learning in all the ways that you mentioned. But the main way that I learned with the blueprints is that I'm a somatic sexologist, which means that I get to work with people very hands-on. So when people come to see me, it's very intimate. I'm working with couples like you see on the Netflix show, where I'm working with them in a very intimate way and watching what's happening in their body. And so after
I'm sorry, just for clarity, that means you're watching them have sex?
Well, it depends on your definition of sex. So are we defining sex as intercourse, which I think the sexual blueprint would define sex?
Maybe.
I just started blushing all over again at the idea. Yeah. Sorry. Yes.
Randy's muted his microphone
so much.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yes.
It's all good.
Redefine this for us, Jaiya. What is this?
So if we're looking at it across all of the blueprint types, I call them the erotic blueprints because we have this eroticism that's also outer course. We sometimes call it foreplay, but why is it foreplay? Why can't we just have great oral sex or great G-spot massage or great kissing? And that is all part of Or, maybe it's energetic and you never even touch each other, but yet you're having orgasms that are
That's tantric, isn't it? Isn't that kind of the breathing together and doing all those things?
Yeah,
Sting
breath,
was a big
sound,
was
movement.
really kind of brought that to light for a while.
Yeah, so Tantra's breath, sound, movement, and it's also enjoying life. Tantra means liberation through expansion. It's expanding the senses, expanding the awareness of who you are to liberate your being and have total freedom. And so part of that Tantra could be eating that delicious orange if you add breath sound to it.
Mm-hmm.
Anything can become tantric. Add some pelvic floor contractions and bring awareness to the eroticism of life, the eros of life, and it's become tantric.
Got it.
That's unreal.
Right.
And one can orgasm just by doing that alone. Energetic.
Absolutely. So energetic orgasms are the ability to orgasm just through the energetic body. So we all have a biofield around us. There's also whole energetic systems that come from the East and Eastern culture and religion and also medicine. And so looking at some of those, we can see that, there is this other body that is unseen. Some people can see it. But we can measure it. There are devices that can measure these energy fields, and our organs have energy fields. And so you can have orgasms they're like a high frequency orgasm, and they can cause the body to have movements like waves that move through the spine, different kinds of movements that are very pleasurable. And that can happen from touching, not touching, from breathing with somebody, from eye gazing with someone in many, many, many different ways. I just had a new technique I created like with a lover just like 3 days ago. It was my birthday. He was giving me a birthday
Happy
energetic.
birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy birthday. And I was stuck on with a lover, and I was like, oh, okay, let me wrap my mind around that for a second.
With a lover, and we're energetic. We've never had intercourse in 20 years, which is really a unique thing about intercourse. But we have lots of energetic sex. And so he had his fingertips on this part of my skull back here, the base of your skull where your skull meets your spine, and there's a little opening there. And he was just like very lightly like doing this with his fingers, like he's kind of almost like he's fingering me, but he's fingering the base of my spine. And I was just like out of my body. I had to have him ground me because I started having like out of body orgasms.
This is amazing.
Wow.
Wait, I am still stuck. So you've never had intercourse as in penetration?
I've never had penetration
with this partner. But he's kinky sensual.
This partner is energetic sensual with me, but he's a shapeshifter.
I am live speech. I don't have words. I don't know how to. I've never considered it. I mean, I personally love intimacy. Like that's not my choice, but I don't even know how that works. That's unreal.
Yeah. I mean, so this is part of the sexual awakening, part of the sexual liberation is to go like you talked about learning, right, Brian?
Yeah.
Like all the ways in which I learn. One of the ways in which I learn best is to go do experiments. I call them sex labs. And so I go and I'm like, okay, well, let's explore this thing. Let's see what this is like. Let's play with being across the room from each other. Let's play with breath on the body for a few hours. My favorite sex recently is crevice sex. Like, what about the crevice in the corner of your arm or the crevice here where the neck?
Crevice sex.
And
boy, we are coining some new terms.
I know. I was going to say people might take that to a whole different level of what that means to them based on old definitions.
What's amazing is I bet all of the pornography that's going to start coming out where it's like just straight
rubbing an elbow,
and that's going to be like that'll be the list of things. Crevice sex, the greatest crevice sex you've ever seen.
Okay, what I love about this so much to like bring it back into something like
viable,
real. Well, no, it's all viable.
Something worth anything.
What I love, it's all worth so much to me.
I tend to stretch.
We asked people to like send in questions and what people would be interested to hear about in our conversation with you. And a big one that came through across the board was people that have been together for an extended period of time and have lost the desire. They love their partner deeply, but have absolutely no desire to have intercourse. What we generally think of sex as. But what you're explaining is so like enlightening and groundbreaking. I like, well, for me to hear, because these couples don't,
it doesn't need to be
it doesn't have to be
intercourse.
penetration, which
Right.
can seem so like it invades your body sometimes.
But I mean,
or
in the
whatever.
questions that were posed, it was like, we've been married for 30 years, but we haven't had sex for 2 years. And it's like, this is a whole,
Right.
there's so many more options than just having intercourse.
And discovering these things sounds like that's like marriage saving stuff, you know? That's a beautiful, and these people probably didn't realize that maybe they are just energetic and never really loved intercourse in the traditional sense, but you know, that's just what everybody does. It's how you make a baby, so it's what you do.
Right. So Jaiya, where does one start? I mean, let's say a couple comes to you and says, "Help. We love each other, but we have not had sex. I don't really have a desire to have sex with my partner." Where do you start?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of different areas to look at with this. And but the first place is, I call it the passion trifecta. And because I see so many people who love each other, and yet they do not connect sexually at some point in their relationship. And there's usually three things that are lost because of it. One is mystery. We get together, we live together. We don't have that same thing as when
too
we're
much.
first dating. Yeah, we know we have too much
Right.
intimacy, actually.
Right.
There's not enough mystery in the relationship. So how can you start to bring mystery back in? Maybe you sleep in separate bedrooms for a little while and see what that does. It seems counterintuitive, but it can also start to bring back some mystery. And then you have a date in one of the bedrooms. And that can start to bring some passion back in. So the first is mystery. The second is naughtiness or novelty, because we also lose the newness. We go to the same restaurant every week. We go out on the same date. We don't do new, novel, or naughty things. We need to break some rules within our dating and the way that we're courting each other. So mystery, novelty, naughtiness, and the last one is obstacle. We also don't have any obstacles anymore. There's no like game to get each other.
Right. It's
Right.
a surefire thing. So you're like, oh, right. You lose the try, and it's like the hunt and kill aspect of it.
I don't have to be my
away.
best self. I could
Totally.
be grumpy and walk around curmudgeon because, I know you're
It doesn't
there.
matter
We'll
if
go to
my
the
hair is
bathroom
looking good or if they're, totally.
Right. Which can be a great thing because there's comfort, but there's too much comfort. And because there's too much comfort, you become roommates instead of passionate lovers with each other. And if we think about all irresistible attraction stories, they all have this: Romeo and Juliet, mystery, naughtiness, they broke the rules, novelty, and obstacle. Lots of obstacle.
Right.
So even something as simple as, if you go to bed naked, wear something to bed. Don't go to bed naked if you've been doing that every night for all of your relationship. So that would be a place to start. And then the second place is, what's the awkwardness about? Where did this begin? What started it? Is there painful intercourse? And you're not talking about the fact that it hurts when you're having sex. And so you didn't want to bring that up to your partner because it's embarrassing. Well, nobody should be having painful sex. No,
right.
That's not normal and I don't like the word normal, because so many people are like, am I normal? I don't want people to think they're broken. You're not broken.
Right.
But you also shouldn't be having painful sex. So that's something to look at. Like, well, let's get to the bottom of why sex is painful. Is there a biochemical thing going on? And there's no more chemistry or attraction. And how do you move beyond chemistry into alchemy? That's the conversation I'm really interested in, because so many people are relying on chemistry to wait until like, oh, I feel that feeling to have sex. But what about sexual alchemy? That's a whole other conversation.
That's actually a really good point. I think most people are like, oh, I'm just not in the mood. You've got to wait to be turned on to have sex. But you're saying it doesn't have sex to be turned on? The other way
majority
around?
of people actually don't feel that. And when we're stressed, 80% of us lose our drive.
Right.
20% of us sexuals, and people who might be like a high drive person who don't have a lot of brake system. When we get stressed, we want to have sex because the sex makes us feel less stressed.
Right. Yeah.
So that I think it's just important to take into account, like, okay, I feel stressed, so I don't want to have sex, but actually sex is really good for you when you're stressed. So making that effort to go, I might not be in the mood, but let's do it anyway.
Let's get in the mood. Right.
Yeah.
It's an activity. It's like, I don't feel like going to the gym, but I'm going to go to the gym anyway. And then you're done and you feel great.
Exactly.
Yes.
Wow. just
love all
I
of
love
it.
where this conversation is
rethinking.
going. This has been, this
Yeah.
is amazing.
So we got so many questions. Before we get to a few questions, I'm really interested to understand more the getting to know yourself in a more intimate way. Meaning, how can you spiritually evolve through sex? I know sex isn't the only way, but I don't know. I think there's something really interesting about taking something that seems very physical, and I think to some people it's an act, or it can be a sport, or it can be this very, very only physical thing, and moving from that arena to I can know myself more. I can, feel the universe and energy. Like, how do you get there from just this physical act?
I'm giggling because this question is so energetic. So
It is. It's so right. As he was asking it, I was like, of course, this was your
This is the
blueprint.
Randy question.
This is-
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
asking questions from your blueprint, which I totally love.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I'm also
like as shallow
sweating
as
now
can be.
too. I'm
Right.
like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So the first step on that journey of going into what I call the transformational stage of sexuality, it's when you want the what's more to sex, and not just like energetic blueprints are most interested in that transformational stage. And so the first step is just to start to say yes to what's unseen and yes to what's possible, and to start to play with this opening up to the possibilities and watching things like the Netflix show. In episode 2, I start having these energetic orgasms without being touched, for anybody who hasn't seen it. So just seeing another person, it's like Roger Bannister in the 4-Minute Mile. It's like
Right.
that year, a bunch of other people ran a 4-minute mile. I think it was 36 people when no one had done it before. So once you've seen something that's possible, it starts to open up those possibilities for yourself. The other thing is just start learning about energy, learn about the anatomy of energy, learn about how energy flows in the body. The way that my partner and I were total opposites. I was 0 kinky. He was highest kinky. I was 5% sensual, and he was 0 sexual. I was highest in sexual, and he was 5% energetic. And so he decided he was going to expand in the energetic so that he could speak to me, so he could pleasure me. And the way that he did it was through something called network spinal analysis, where he learned how to open up his own energy in his body and then how to move energy with his hands. So learning something like Reiki or healing touch or some of these energy modalities. Donna Eden has a great book called The Energies of Love. She's amazing. So just even studying and seeing that it's a possibility can be ways in which we start to open up in ourselves those practices and then bring that to a partner. And then I'll add one more. If you have a partner who's really energetically attuned, it's contagious. The energetic orgasms are contagious. So my partner started having them just because I was having them. It's like this energy starts to flow between two people, and you can catch it that way, in a good way.
It's like a sneeze or a yawn, right?
Right.
Yeah. Is there ever a time where someone comes to you and they're just not a match? I mean, you just see that maybe it's gone too long in the relationship without sex, or that you said something about feeling unsafe. If that lack of safety has built up so much that someone is just completely closed off to safe, great sex with that partner.
Yeah. If you have different blueprints, I don't think you're doomed at all. So I want to say that, because sometimes people think like, oh, I'm energetic and they're sexual and then we're doomed. That's not it. It's exactly what you pointed to. It's a lack of safety and a lack of willingness. So if you're not safe within that relationship, emotionally, physically, spiritually, psychologically, like all of these ways, then that can be really, really challenging until that safety is created. So that could be a moment to question, like, I'm not safe here. Is my partner willing to create safety for me? And what can I do in myself to create safety? So that could be a journey to go on, not necessarily the end of the relationship, but then if you go on that journey and your partner's still unwilling to create safety for you, and you can't find safety, that's a big challenge. And then if there's unwillingness on either one of your parts to learn how to feed, speak, heal, or expand in these erotic blueprints, that can really be a challenge because you're just not willing to learn.
That was one of the things that stood out for me so much when you were just talking about your partner and the fact that he was lacking so much as far as the blueprint goes of what you had. So instead of taking that as a negative thing, he was like, I'm going to dive in and I'm going to work on building that up so we can mesh, so we can find connection with that. And I think a lot of people, they don't think that way. They kind of lose that concept of, they feel like, oh, okay, well, we're just too different and that's just the way it is. And it's like, it can all be, you can work at all of this is what you're saying. Like you can absolutely cross over and become better at this and fill in that piece of the pie more than you did to begin with.
Yeah, it's just skill sets to be learned. It's like learning any language. And if you love your partner and you're willing to learn their language, then you have longevity within your relationship.
That's important for people that have been married for 30 years to understand that it's like, it's, instead of pointing at a long marriage and going, we're just not, we don't have sexual chemistry anymore. So it just is what it is. It's like, no. So fight to get it back, find out what it is your partner is lacking, find out what it is you're lacking. And you both make the choice of finding those things and finding that connection again, because it's there. It's just that you've kind of disregarded what it is the other person likes and what it is you like, and you're not really paying attention to that anymore.
You're speaking a different language.
You become sort of mundane in this setting of what your existence is.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it very well.
Good job. Good job, baby.
What's your take on pornography? Because
oh my God, I had that question.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
we worry about it with kids and the way that it teaches our youth growing and that it teaches them.
But I also at the same time have had situations where it's like porn is terrible to watch. Like it is just a gateway drug to like not finding intimacy with somebody you're with. And there are so many negatives now about it. Yeah.
I think it's so much worse than when we were growing up as kids because we worry about it with our kids, right? When you were kids, it was like, I don't know, Debbie Does Dallas or whatever that was. Now it's like some wild, crazy stuff that's out there that really can be harmful.
Yeah,
it is. I mean, for me, I remember at first a friend of mine literally brought a few Playboy magazines and like shoved it in my backpack and was educating me on masturbation and what to do. And I thought, wait, what? Okay, what's happening? Mm-hmm. And there was so much imagination involved in that. And then I remember when I saw my first porn film, it was from the 70s and I was a bit, I don't want to say traumatized. That might be too exaggerated, but it really kind of crushed me a little bit because, I mean, maybe this is part of my blueprint, but I could see these people didn't like each other. There was no anything about what I thought sex was. For me, there was like a lack of connection and just this sort of like animalistic act and, seeing anatomy. And it just threw me for a little bit. And I imagine now in this day and age with all of the sites and the whatever, there's some pretty out there stuff. I mean, how do you think this affects kids growing up or adults who get into watching a lot of porn and then need to watch porn to orgasm?
The place where I have the most concern is the somatic pattern or habit that we get into when we're watching it. So I'm watching this external thing that oftentimes doesn't have a lot of authenticity. I think you're right on. There is some in which there's erotica where people are connected, maybe couple.
Totally. Pizza guys are sexy, and there's no way around that. Right. Totally. The pool man. Everybody wants the pool man, which is why pool men exist.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, just like anything, I think it's how are we interacting? What's the relationship that we're having with this? And, I don't want to shame anybody who has a relationship with this, that they're wrong or bad, because that perpetuation of shame then can just create more of a negative cycle again, kind of comes out sideways. But to think about, well, what's my relationship here and how am I wiring my body for pleasure? I'm
Mm.
wiring my body for pleasure from this external source that isn't authentic, doesn't have authentic sounds. How is that affecting the brain? How are the images affecting my brain? How then is the way that I'm touching my body, if it's quick, if it's going straight to the intercourse, it's very sexual blueprinted. How is that all affecting my body? And then how is that affecting my relationships with a real human
Mm.
when that comes time for that intimacy? So I think all of these questions are really good questions to ask yourself as you're moving into the ease. I think one of the challenges with erotica and pornography is that there's such an ease. Oh, this is an easy get off. It's an easy dopamine.
Mhm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then so it's training the body for that easy dopamine hit over and over and over again. So when you go to be with a real person, that then can create challenges. And then it creates this rut that becomes a grave to your sexuality. You're not in an expanded sexuality. You've got one route that you've now grooved into your brain, into
Some
your
like quick fix, basically.
Mm-hmm.
neurology that is this
Right.
quick fix. And I am concerned about young people, and we're seeing more erectile dysfunction. I don't know if there's a correlation between what's happening biochemically, what's happening with porn, and some of that, but I do think that they are bombarded with a lot of images that maybe their brains aren't ready for. Like like that was kind of
Yeah.
traumatizing. My brain wasn't ready for that. And to have conversations, I think just like with drugs and substances, we need to be having these conversations about sex and pornography, because these are things that can become overused, compulsive, and not good for us in terms of human connection and in terms of our pleasure and in terms of sexual function.
Mm.
Yes.
How do you have those conversations with your kids? I mean, our kids are currently, 11 and under, so I don't believe we're there yet. But like, when do you start that, and how? Asking for us, not a friend.
So one thing is when they ask you the questions, that like for you to be, we talked about safety, make yourself really safe to have those conversations with your kids, which means non-judgmental, which means
Yeah.
unconditionally loving, which means I'm here and I'm open to hear where you're at, what your questions are, and to answer from an educated standpoint. And to not get reactive, which can be really hard as a parent when your child comes to you and says, "Hey, I saw this porn," or "My friend showed me this thing," or, to not be reactive, but to actually go, "Okay, I love you. There's nothing you've done wrong, but let's talk about this and let's talk about why this is important." And so I think there's a natural age in which they get curious. And if we've
Yeah.
created a safe space as parents, they will come to us and say, "Hey, this has happened. I'm curious about this." Songs and media. I teach my son is a teenager now, and he's at that age where kids are starting to become sexually curious and active, and media is so great. He loves listening to like certain rap music, and I'll go, "Okay, what does that mean to you? And do you know what that statement actually means?" And he shows me his innocence by saying, "Oh, it means blah, blah, blah. It has nothing to do with sex." He has no idea that it has to do with sex. It's our own brains, our adult brains that know. And so
Mm.
that also is important. Or he'll say, "Yeah, mom, I know that." I'm a sex educator, so he's grown up with me, but
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'll say, "Yeah, mom, I know that is sexual and derogatory towards women, but I know that. I wouldn't say that. I enjoy this music, but I don't believe that that's right." And so
Right.
we get to have those conversations because the media is also teaching them. And how can you, as parents, while you still have influence on them, talk about those things that they're being
Mm.
influenced by?
Just not make anything taboo. That's disgusting. Don't listen to that. That's terrible. Don't do it. Just make it all open and
Yep.
say, let's talk about what that
Right.
means and why it's important to talk
Because as
about. I
soon as you
love
make
that.
it bad and disgusting, they get that ingrained. I'm bad and disgusting because I saw it.
They'll talk.
Experienced
That's
it.
wow. That's
And
a really
that's how the
important
Yeah.
sexual
point.
shame gets ingrained in them. And then also, they feel your charge, and then they want to rebel when they get into that. They need to differentiate from their parents. They're like, "I'm gonna rebel. I'm gonna do that
Totally.
thing that now, is has an energetic charge in me."
Oh, Jaya, I am no longer going to
That's
tell my daughter that the rap songs that she's listening to are bad or derogatory. I actually had to have this conversation with one of my daughters because something was coming home from school. I guess someone had watched a porn film. I don't even know how to say it, pornography. And And what was going around in the class is, oh, daddy, and everyone was kind of joking around without fully understanding what that means. And I don't think I said it charged, but I said, I'd like to talk to you about this, because think about for a moment what that term means. And I did tell her, and I said, I'm your dad. And just the idea of that, because I see this all over social media. Do you all see this too? A lot of people getting in touch with their sexuality, and it's like, spit in my mouth and call me daddy and whatever is a form of like liberation. But inherently, there's something strange about referring to your parent as something that would turn you on, right? I mean, maybe not strange, but I don't know what to do with that.
That's tricky. Yeah, it is tricky.
Yeah.
It's tricky, and it falls very in the kinky blueprint, so it's interesting. We've done some teaching of like sex education, and some of our coaches have gone into high schools, and we're seeing more and more like kinky in that demographic of young adults and young teen or older teens. And I'm wondering if it's just part of culture, because and it's part of like this separation between culture. And it is weird for dads to have like these kinds of things like being said, because it is a sexual context. And then again, what's their meaning in their brain? Are they making that connection, or are we uncomfortable with it because we've put a meaning on it? That is more sexualized than what they actually like. They're joking around and they have no idea what they're actually saying. But I think it is important, like you, to sit down and go like, let's have a conversation about that. I feel uncomfortable with it, and I'm wondering how we can navigate that together. I love you.
So own it.
Yeah, own
it yourself.
Feel it anyway. We think we're being not hiding things as parents, but they are very smart and they feel things.
Right.
I think it's important to be authentic and transparent, and to tell the truth when we're uncomfortable with a conversation, especially around sexuality. I love you. Nothing you've done wrong. I feel uncomfortable with this conversation. And can we talk about it? Can we sit down like adults and talk?
Right.
Yes.
I love that.
So good. Another question that we had from a few people is about vibrators, sex toys, and wondering if that does in fact desensitize you from, having an orgasm just in that way.
The same thing with porn. How are you using the tool?
I was just going to say, it becomes the quick fix.
Right.
It becomes like the quick solution. Like it's the fast way to get to something and get through to it. There's no work that it takes to get there, I would assume.
And if you're doing the same pattern all the time, you're creating that neural net, which is becoming a rut, which can become a grave, which can become your only route to turn on. And so you want to make sure that you're mixing things up. And I'd also say this is also blueprint dependent. Energetics are going to be a lot quicker to desensitize and frazz out from too much, too quick, too fast in the sexual blueprint. So, if you're energetic, maybe you don't put the vibrator directly on your body, but you hover it around and tease of like, wow, that intense sensation that I'm about to experience.
Anticipation, right?
How about for us shapeshifters out there? What does that mean?
Yeah, it's like mixing it all together. So you might start with that tease where you've just got the sound of it and like teasing over, and then you put like a little piece of fur or some kind of sensation between the vibrator. So I have these fur mitts that I can put my vibrator inside of. And so the vibrator's inside the fur mitt. So it's indirect, but you're getting all the fur. Plus the
I love watching Randy's face right now. This is
I'm watching Sharna. I'm watching.
This is the greatest thing ever. Jaiya, you have just brought so much entertainment and love to my day. I feel so much better.
I'm personally so excited. Say again.
Do you want to hear the kinky one? What's it?
Yes.
To add the kinky into your shapeshifter?
Of course.
So you can tie the vibrator like with a rope around, but just so it's on the pubic bone and not touching their clitoris. And then if they're really good, then you can go directly sexual, and then they get the touch on the clitoris or penis, whatever body part.
But key, if they're really good.
If they're really good, only if they're really good do they actually get that vibrator.
You mean as in like a good girl? If they're really good?
Good girl, good boy, whichever way.
Yeah.
Again,
however
you know what?
identify.
That makes sense. He's said, it's so personal. He's said good girl to me a couple of times before, and I was like, exploded. It did it for me. So the kinky thing, I guess, makes sense. I just never realized it.
Yep.
That's so funny. Okay, as what I have another question that we did get asked about a lot, and for a lot of women that are heading into menopause and are really struggling with their libido, just finding no desire to have sex. What are some things that they can do? Where do they start? Is this a rut that's turned into a grave? Is there a way through? Like, what is some guidance there?
There's definitely a way through. Again, looking at those four things, biochemistry being a big one because the biochemistry is changing in a big way. Are you working with your doctor? There are bioidentical hormones, there are herbs that you can take. And so there are things, and I will say the struggle is real. I work with a lot of women who've gone through this. I'm in that age right now, and it's just like, whoa, like what happened? Where did, like, it feels like it went overnight. And again, this is that thing of once you get going, it will kick in. It's just that thing, like you said, Brian, about going to the gym. It's like, okay, once I get going, it's great. It feels great. And I'm so glad that I did it. But yet at the same time, it's just that kind of like mind over the biochemistry at this point. Use your psyche emotional tools, use the connection and the love that you feel with your partner, schedule intimacy dates where you just know and you can build anticipation all week to get into that moment. But really, it is a biochemical challenge. So it is, how do we overcome the chemistry and get really interested? This is a great time to learn Tantra. This is a great time to maybe switch out of the sexual blueprint and get and learn more energetic and expand into more of your sensuality. And that's one thing that I love about the blueprints. My partner actually enlightened me to this because he said, because I was like, my sexual is really down. And that's weird for me. And he said, but you're still an erotic creature. You got all the other blueprints to play in. And I was like, duh, my own work, coming in.
Yes.
So is that almost the same suggestion then that you would give to somebody that's having issues because they're on certain drugs or certain things that are, certain medications
And
or kind
SSRI
of
or
things
something like
that,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, same thing.
Finding the different ways. It's like, okay, if it's affecting, your performance that way, then let's get into some different ways to kind of create the connection.
How do you find pleasure? Like, let's take it out of the intercourse box because that box is so limited, such a limited script that, and I have nothing against intercourse. I love intercourse. So nothing against that. But there's so much more variety and there's so much more to learn and there's so much more play that, I think that the big thing is we have to have sex worth wanting, as Esther Perel says. She's amazing. If any of you have read
I
her
love
book,
her.
she's so great. But she says you have to have sex worth wanting. So what's the sex that's worth wanting for you during this time when you're ill or you're taking a medication or your biochemistry is changing? Because sex does heal. And I really believe in pleasure is healing. And it's one of the things that we start to let go to the wayside. Early in my career, I worked with this doctor and I was really fascinated by some of the things that he was saying, because he was looking at people who got well when they had cancer and other really intense illnesses and people who died in the illness in his practice. And he was noticing a correlation between the ones who stayed sexually active and in pleasure, getting better, and the ones who didn't, who allowed their sexuality to go. And I think there's some truth to this just on a biochemical level, that when we're telling our body we're still in pleasure and we're procreating, we want to stay here. The body goes, oh, you're still a viable human. When we stop those things, the body goes, okay, you're done.
You're no good anymore.
Yeah, there's more life force when you're having pleasure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. More prana, more chi, more life force. All of that is moving through your body when you're pleasure.
Yes.
Fascinating. It's so apropos too that tomorrow is Valentine's Day. So what's the last thing as we wrap up here, Jaiya? What would you say to someone around love, intimacy, sex, blueprint? What's your message to our listeners?
I think the most important message that we can all hear, and this may sound a little cliche, is that the bottom line of all of this is learning unconditional love for you from you. And when you learn unconditional love for yourself, and sexuality is part of that, can you accept yourself as a whole erotic being? I think we're all shapeshifters. We've just been conditioned out of it. And we are these whole beings who have many, many facets to our eroticism. And when we can love ourselves there in this place where we have the most shame, I think, in our culture, then that place of love gives acceptance and safety and love to everyone else so that they can fully blossom. And that's like a pay it forward, pass it on. Everybody gets it in the end.
Mm,
That's a mic
Jaiya,
drop.
you've been so
that's a
amazing.
mic
Yeah,
drop.
you've been so amazing to be here.
Oh,
Thank you
can you just
so much.
do all of our episodes with us?
Right.
Oh,
Right.
thank you.
This has been an amazing conversation. And
Thank you.
you're incredible, and we're so grateful that you took the time out of your busy schedule and came here to Oldish to talk to everyone
Absolutely.
and answer
Yeah,
some
thank
questions.
you, Jaiya.
For anyone that wants to know more about your work, what you do, or if they want to work with you through their own things they're experiencing, where can people find you?
So you can find me online. The quiz is great.
Quiz is amazing.
Yes.
Taking the quiz is a great place to start. I also have a new book out, Your Blueprint for Pleasure.
Right.
Great place to get started with the blueprints. And you can find me, just search Jaiya Erotic Blueprints. You'll find me all over the place.
I love
Miss
that.
Jaiya too. I love that. I love
Miss
Right,
Jaiya.
Miss Jaiya.
That's a great way also. Thank you
This
so
has
much.
been my
Thanks for
favorite
being here.
episode we've done. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
thank
I'm
you.
so
It was such a
excited.
pleasure to be here.
You've been amazing. Thank you.
Bye.
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 That was so much fun.
I feel like I
Guys.
know so much
Incredible.
about you two now.
Yeah.
Right. I know.
It's a
I feel like
whole
we
new
just,
level.
everyone knows a lot about
Yet
us now.
what's funny is I don't feel like as much shame as I thought I would being in front of you. I feel like, okay, we kind of know each other, on a much deeper level, but like it's okay. Like it's in a positive way. It's like, oh, okay, I know something about Randy that makes me just understand him a little more.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
not just wearing the clogs and running down my stairs.
It's,
Now, I
well,
mean,
it's still
real.
no, that still plays a huge part because now I have the visual of that. But now, now I can understand like who you are between running up and down stairs with clogs.
Right. What I was amazed by too was she got all of ours pretty much
Oh, yeah.
Oh, she was
exactly.
spot on.
Oh, yeah.
She got,
spot
Yeah.
on.
she guessed mine. Actually, I didn't even realize, and you called it out. I thought I was just kinky, which is why I was like, this is like wild, but the kinky sensual was like equal parts. And she
Yeah.
said that she called out sensual first just by watching my body
By
language.
watching
Wow.
how you were touching yourself.
And I'm always touching myself. That sounds incredibly sexual, but I'm like, I'm always hand on my face or my arm or whatever, or on Brian.
Randy's learning all sorts of things today.
Yay.
Happy almost
Yay.
Valentine's Day, everybody.
Happy almost Valentine's Day. I loved this.
Yeah.
I did
I
too.
say I was gonna say no, go ahead. Before I sign us out, because you have something
Oh
else
yeah,
that
I
you
was
wanna
just
say.
gonna say, so we'd love to hear from you. I'm so curious to know, you don't have to share your blueprint, but it's something, some sort of takeaway or something that you want to try, because this isn't just about the act of sex. I mean, one of the biggest things that was unearthed by talking with Jaiya is receiving pleasure, having pleasure, that being part of life force. And
I so
right
hope that
here.
this episode answered questions too for people. And I think that, I know in asking those questions, they weren't necessarily the answers that I thought I was going to hear, but then you hear about it and you go, that makes way more sense. Like your approach to sex, if you're feeling like the spark isn't there, well, maybe you are interpreting what the spark should be compared to what it actually is, and finding those different sparks, because there are many different ones out there. And I think people tend to look for just the one in intercourse and go, yeah, we're not having that, so the spark isn't there. And it's like, well, the spark, it could absolutely be there in a million other ways. So look for
that
those.
revelation of sex is not just intercourse, right? Is amazing, because I know for women, in speaking to women, right, it's not the art of being the act of being intimate. It's like the penetration can sometimes feel like you know, I just don't want that right now, but I want to be close. That's why women are like, can we just cuddle? Not
Right,
understanding that there is a world of other things we can explore and have a sexual moment with each other without it being intercourse.
Yes, exactly.
Without penetration. I love that so much for our listeners, for women, for people listening, and for men too, I'm sure. Like, that's just such an enlightening piece of information. Beautiful.
It is.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Yes.
I hope you gain some things and some practices that make this Valentine's Day extra special, because I know it's going to make it extra special for us. and judging by Randy's face right now, I'm assuming it's going to make things extra special for Randy.
Randy, I'm so excited for you. For you and your wife. Go get it.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Happy
everyone.
Valentine's Day.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Yes, you guys are amazing. Make sure you guys go and follow us on Instagram at oldishpod. And you can also go and leave us a message at our own hotline, which is 855-OLDISH-3.
Make sure and write us a review. Leave us 5 stars if you loved it. Leave us 5 stars if you didn't.
We
It
love
helps.
5 stars. We love 5 stars.
Yeah.
We
Give us
like
all
5
the
stars.
Yeah. See you
All
next
right.
week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you next week, everyone.